Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. This is Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find me at MEC Sharks and on Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find me on Twitter at halfwall_hockey and my website, half-wallhockey.com. Also at San Jose Hockey Now. It is the beginning of the hockey season. It is like Christmas for all hockey fans. And we have some opening night rosters talk. We have some Couture news, as well as some other ramblings to go on about the Sharks.
The big thing, though, that we're going to hit this week, though, is we're going to make, and we want to make sure that we record this before the opening night so that this could be recorded for posterity, and you guys can laugh at us at how stupid we are. We're going to make our bold predictions. So both Keegan and I, we're going to have 5 bold predictions each, and a bonus one, too. So that's 12 bold predictions for the price of one podcast.
If you've listened to another Sharks podcast, we're taking these things and we're writing them in blood. And in 5 years from now, people are going to remember these bold predictions. No.
Oh, I hope not, because I'm going to be probably wrong on all of them. So
yeah, that's true. But it'll be a lot of fun. I think some of them might come true, maybe.
Yeah.
Some are more bold than others. I'll say that.
Yeah, and some of these things are more. And I'll for mine at least, I'll tell you where my thinking is. Some of them are kind of more Phil things. Some of them are kind of educated guesses.
Sure.
All of them, though, I can be wrong on. Very wrong on. So.
Me too. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. All right, Sheng. So let's start with the biggest news, I guess, the opening night roster, or what we think might happen on opening night. The Sharks have been putting out some lines at practice, or you have, for the Sharks.
Sure.
Who do you think right now, Sheng, is going to be in our opening night?
Well, I think you guys have all seen the roster, so we don't have to rehash everybody that's on it. I want to give Keegan and I some credit. Our predictions, I think, were pretty close to true, except for Thrun being in, just because they were able to kind of hide more guys on IR. So sneaky of the Sharks.
They pulled the double whammy on us.
Yeah,
brought Thrun back up after. That was pretty interesting.
But in terms of just how I think they're going to start. I think that there is some question in terms of they have 13 forwards, and on their fourth line, the last 4 days, they've been running the same 4 players, but of course the line is 3 players, so one of them is going to sit. Sturm at center, who is a lock, he's going to be there tomorrow night, and for the early part of the season, unless he's hurt. But then, though, you have 3 wingers that I think will mix up, and it's Giovanni Smith, Fabian Zetterlund, and Kevin LeBanc. And so I think the question is what they feel like they need that night, who's kind of playing better, right? So I think that it's possible for LeBanc to sit out opening night. He hasn't been on the power play the last couple of days, and that's usually a telltale sign, because a power play is such a specialized drill that if you're kind of not on it, then it's sort of, because the team's not going to waste a practice spot in a specialized drill on somebody who they think may not play. I'm not saying it's a guarantee he's not going to play, but it is noteworthy that a guy like LeBanc, who makes his bones on a power play, hasn't been on it the last couple of days, as opposed to Henry Thrun. Henry Thrun has been on the power play the last couple of days, and he's also paired with a veteran defenseman in Jan Rutta that I don't really foresee the Sharks scratching, especially early in the season. So, so I think Thrun and Rutta are in. The lines that I've seen, I think it will hold tomorrow. Of course, they can be mixed up by the second period, but it's Hurdle with Zadina and Hoffman.
Sure.
Granlund centering Eklund and Kunin. Bordeleau centering. Barabanov, Duclair. Yeah, sorry about that. Barabanov, Duclair. And like I mentioned, Sturm centering 2 of the 3 wingers. On defense, I mentioned Thrun, Rutta, Vlasic and Benning have been together, and Ferraro and Burrows. So I'm pretty sure, I would guess that at least for night 1, because I don't really see them scratching any of the veteran mainstays the first day, the first opening night. So I think those guys are going to be safe, which means that the last couple of days, they've been running Knizhov with Emberson, so that'd be my guess on who they sit at least opening night. Injuries and poor play, can dictate things quickly in the future. And the Sharks are, funny enough, deeper on defense granted deeper in bottom pairing defensemen, but they have a lot of valid NHL guys, just all kind of bottom pairing guys for the most part. But they have a lot of them though, and so somebody's gonna sit. And so yeah, so that's sort of my feel for the opening night.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me, I think I agree with you. I don't know why, but I feel like against Vegas, I feel like they're going to want to run with like Smith and Zetterlund.
Yeah, Smith, I feel like is
rather
a
than
decent
LeBanc,
bet.
and that's
Yeah.
I just feel like the physicality aspect of it. That like I know that David Quinn's going to want to come out hitting. Like I just have this feeling against Vegas opening night that he's going to want to come with a physical lineup.
Right.
And LeBanc doesn't bring the most physical element to his game.
Yeah, I think it could be between Zetterlund and LeBanc. I feel Smith is the safest of the three wingers, I would say. Yeah, I agree on that.
So we'll see. I mean, it's a possibility that the bank is in instead of Zetterlund, or Zetterlund gets a game or two and then doesn't really produce, and LeBanc comes back in. It's kind of interesting because the Sharks do have a lot of skilled wingers, you know, like Zadina and Hoffman and Eklund and Barabanov, Duclair, a lot of like this skilled but not very physical wingers.
Right.
And then LeBanc is just another one on top. So, it is interesting what they did with the last minute defense. Basically, everybody went on to injured reserve or season opening injured reserve.
Yeah.
And now we have 8 defensemen. And 6 are going to play tomorrow. So
yeah,
we'll see,
and
I think
there's injuries or whatever. Suddenly, it makes it easier to figure out what to do with.
I'm excited for Thrun. I think this is going to be interesting.
Yes, I have a bold Thrun prediction. Yeah, later.
Yeah, so. About Henry Thrun. But so that's our opening night roster. Obviously, things can change tomorrow. If they do, you'll be on top of it, I'm sure, Sheng.
Yeah, but they ran the same lines for forward lines for 4 straight days. The defense, they've run the same defense for the last 2 days. I don't think there will be too much. I mean, you're not going to bother with all this practice with the same exact lines if you're not going to at least give them a spin together. And like I said, it could change by the second period. Vegas can drop a 3 spot on Kahkonen, and then we have like a blender of lines already, which you don't want to see that the first night of the season. But in terms of at least the first period, I'm feel pretty confident that that's how they'll run things.
So speaking of that name, Kahkonen, he is our opening night starter.
Right.
That's it was kind of
you called that.
I got the coin flip correct on the Kahkonen being the opening night starter. So and people mentioned it during this preseason that he looked a little bit more confident. He looked a little bit more sound in net, at least in preseason.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting. He's going up against a Stanley Cup caliber team,
former teammate Adin Hill,
and former teammate Adin Hill. So I'm excited for Kahkonen. I do worry about this first game though, just because it's going to be a very difficult test, I imagine. This whole first 2 weeks of the Shark schedule is very difficult. But it's cool that he's getting the opening night start.
He has earned it. There's no. I mean, Blackwood, I think, has been. I don't think that David Quinn is blowing smoke up, but he said that he's liked Blackwood in the preseason, and I think Blackwood has been good in the preseason. But Kahkonen, I believe, won both preseason games he played, and he has been better. And so we talk about the meritocracy thing, right? And we talked about how, for some guys who are waiver exempt, it doesn't really apply quite as much, and there's nothing wrong with that. We talked about last week with Thrun when we thought that Thrun would be the one to get sent down. But anyway, in this case, though, it makes sense that it is a little bit more of a pure meritocracy just because their contracts are very similar, about the same age. I thought that Blackwood would just get the edge because I think that they are hoping that, of course, one of these guys emerges as a true starter, but Blackwood is sort of the new guy here, right? It just acquired this past summer. Also, too, he is Mike's guy in terms of Mike's the one who acquired him. Mike Career's the one who acquired him. Also, Mike knew him in New Jersey. So we'll see how long a rope that Kahkonen has, but if he plays, of course, as well as he did in the preseason, he's going to have a very, very long leash.
And somebody has a bold prediction about Kahkonen in the bold predictions
section.
It's me.
So much teasing going on here. Yeah,
I know.
Tickle me with a feather.
We're getting there. So, all right, let's move on to the Sharks captain. Logan Couture. Sheng, it's been kind of I'll call it a rope-a-dope of
Yeah.
what the news are about Logan Couture's status. It was like maybe beginning for or ready for the opening night roster. What do we think now?
Well, right now, he's had a mid setback. At least David Quinn called it a little bit of a setback. He was back skating. It looked like he was, kind of wrapping himself up to, if not for opening night, because that was a little too soon. I believe he started skating last Friday. That was his first day skating, and then they went to Napa. And I assume that Logan did not skate when they were in Napa. He skated on Monday, and then he's had the last 2 days off. That's not a good. That's not a good sign. If he had just taken a day off, then got back at it, that's normal, I think. But 2 days off, not a great sign. So right now, and also too, and it's beyond just taking tomorrow off. They're pretty much going to give him the rest of the week off. So again, not a good marker, and we will see. If it is a groin injury, you want to be very careful with that. Obviously, we saw that with Erik Karlsson 5 years ago, and it's not a point that I've heard any talk of surgery or anything like that, because again, we saw what that did to Karlsson, right, and his trajectory with the Sharks. But it's definitely not great that it's moving backwards, and so I think for a little bit there, it looked like it was always has been termed a week-to-week injury, but with him getting back on the ice and skating and ramping up, maybe you think, okay, week-to-week is maybe he'll play in 2 weeks or something like that. But now, though, I think it's going to be a little longer than that.
Yeah, not encouraging is the best way to put the setback word for Logan Couture, which kind of changes things a little bit in terms of, especially for somebody like Bordeleau, about how long he's going to be up with the Sharks. Especially if he can actually hold his own.
This is opportunity. There's been a lot of questions, I think, fair about Thomas's two-way game and his willingness to play inside and all these kind of things, right? And in a preseason, he's had a couple good games. He also had bad games too. This wasn't a wire-to-wire, strong preseason from him either. And so this is it. This is the opportunity. And he's also with, excellent line mates. He's actually arguably playing with the Sharks' strongest pair of wingers in Barabanov and Duclair. Eklund's unproven. Kunin is not a big offensive force, right? Hoffman hasn't been a big offensive force for a couple of years. Zadina has never been a big offensive force, and not yet at least. And so, so he's going to get, he's getting a clear shot. And so if he can't run with this, then that's going to be sort of a mark against him, because the opportunity is right here and it's with the right players.
Yeah, it's actually thinking about that lineup, it's very interesting. There is some inexperience in the top six. Eklund's there, and then you've got Hoffman, who's not like a consistent 200-foot player, who's kind of up.
And he also just hasn't scored as much the last couple of years.
He's on the downswing of his career, and then Kunin, who's more notably like a third liner rather than a second, and Zadina, who's a little unproven.
Right, very so I think the idea here, and that's what coaches do start every year. They try to balance. They try to have balanced lines.
Yep.
If you remember a couple of years ago, the Sharks, they had signed Nick Bonino, and they put him with Kevin LeBanc on the third line. On paper, that sounded pretty good, because this is Nick Bonino that wasn't, at that point, not that far away from being the, arguably the premier third line center in the league, winning the cup with the Penguins. LeBanc wasn't too far from scoring, 56 points, right, in his breakout year. That sounded like, well, that's actually could be a pretty good third line. But, those two didn't seem to have much chemistry. I think Bonino went like the first 18 games without a point. LeBanc, I think, injured his shoulder and early in the season, and he was done for the year, right? And so these kind of but it was the Sharks' attempt, though, I think, to kind of balance things out, though, to, and actually, I just wrote a story on that about sort of the lines from from to start last year, right? And you see sort of the same sort of sense of trying to balance things out. Last year they had Oscar Lindblom on your second line. They had Luke Kunin on the first line with Meyer and Hurdle. And, if you want to make like the power unit out of last year's team, which was weaker up front, it would have been probably Meyer, Hurdle, and LeBanc. And, which was actually the line that had the most success during the season. But, at the beginning of the season, you try to do sort of the most ideal sort of thing, sort of like if everything happens right, everything falls right for us, this is how it falls.
So not only is Bordeleau going to have to shine with good wingers, he's also going to have to shine when they remove those good wingers and put them up higher if they decide to do that. Like if they move
if they shine, then maybe they won't move them, right? And then if Couture gets healthy and Bordeleau has been really good, then that gives you what the good problem to have, right? And hopefully that is what happens, right? Where Bordeleau is so good that he cannot be sent. Shouldn't be sent down.
Sure.
My guess is that he's going to need a little more time. Not to say that he's not going to do well with Barabanov and Duclair. He's also on the power play too, so he's going to get that chance too. So not to say he's not going to do well with them, but I'm not sure if he's going to do enough that the Sharks will be like, okay, once Couture is back, like, okay, this guy is going to be up here. Now we have to figure out who gets sent to the wing, assuming everybody's healthy. Hurdle, Couture, or Granlund, right? So, but I'm not predicting or speaking about predictions. My guess is that that's not what happens with Bordeleau.
Yeah, and it would be a big improvement, I think, from last year if it happens, and it could. But I think
it could happen. It's just a lot of what ifs, though, right? There's Hoffman, Zadina, Duclair. I mean, those are huge what ifs, but they're not bad bets. Yeah.
Let's move on to because you mentioned, I'm all about segues today because you mentioned Duclair. So the NHL, in its infinite wisdom, has decided to ban, which is against their own rule book. If you've seen that tweet. They have a rule out that says that players can use whatever color tape they want to tape their sticks in warm-ups and such.
Well, the rule is supposed to be like only black or white tape, right? And they made an exception for not to jump in before you finish, but they made an exception before that for the Pride tape.
Yeah, so they now have announced that it is illegal or not allowed to wear
it's not going to be allowed,
for the upcoming season. And this is after they had already announced that they couldn't do specialty jerseys like Pride jerseys anymore.
Military appreciation, Black History jerseys, and during warm-ups, right?
And it's gotten a lot of backlash on Twitter, and also, I would say, deservedly so. Basically, as soon as anybody realizes what they're doing, they kind of say, "Why are you outlawing this?" This seems to be like a personal choice that the NHL doesn't want the players to make.
Yeah.
So Duclair gave you an interesting a quote on this, right? What was his quote?
Well, he gave a lot of them, and you can see the story up on San Jose Hockey Now. But the one that I sort of highlighted was that. Let's give some background on Duclair. Duclair is of Haitian descent. He's a very outspoken member of the Hockey Diversity Alliance. Duclair has worn Pride jerseys and has actually put on Pride tape too before.
Sure.
And most famously in the 2020-21 season, when he joined the Florida Panthers, he wore on his skates. He wore before Martin Luther King Day, 2020-21 season. He wore skates that said BLM for Black Lives Matter. Had a raised fist logo. Also had the phrase "Change Hockey Culture." And the left skate had the Hockey Diversity Alliance logo. And so these are some things that if the NHL is going to follow by the letter of their law, what they seem to be stating here is that there will be zero on the ice demonstrations of or expressions or statement of belief. And they say like, yeah, off the ice, do whatever you want. But, on the ice, things like pride tape, right? That's an adjustment to your stick. So any kind of adjustments to your gear to reflect that. Actually, the policy goes so far to specify stickers and ribbons are banned from player uniforms. Adult coaches are allowed to wear ribbons. So very, very specific of what can or cannot be worn. So anyway, I find this to be, and I'm not saying anything different than a lot of people. It is so, Duclair said going backwards. This feels like it's going backwards, and I have to agree with them. He also said something about, and some people have sort of fought against this online. He said that that's why the NBA, NFL leagues like that, they're always growing year after year, always getting new fans, new viewership. So I'm gonna I'm gonna kind of explain that a little bit more. But anyway, though, before I get to that, though, this is so going backwards. Everybody knows I wrote a lot about James Reimer and his decision to not wear the Pride jersey. And I got a lot of flack online for what I wrote because it's what I felt. And I did not agree with it. I did not like it. But I did give Reimer credit for being willing to talk about it and never shying away from the issue. But I 100% did not agree with them. I thought that was a step backward. Before this Pride tape ban, in about June, the NHL, of course, like you alluded to, said no more warm-up jerseys, specialty warm-up jerseys. And that encompasses everything, not just Pride warm-up jerseys, but like we mentioned, Military Appreciation Night, Black History, whatever. There's been
Irish
many.
Heritage,
Hockey Fights Cancer. Hockey Fights
anything.
Cancer. The St. Patrick's Day, right? Whatever, right? And so anyway, I'm obviously not a fan of it because, and again, I've been very clear about what I wrote, but I understood that, a lot of people will disagree with me on this, that, like, I get where the NHL and NHLPA, it sounds like it was the NHL's decision, but the PA is sort of allowing it, I guess, right? They're not fighting back against it. And I understood where that was coming from because last year we had, when a Reimer would decline to wear it, a Provorov would decide not to wear it, the Stahl brothers in Florida, right? And it became like it became a media frenzy, and I was a part of that, and it became a sort of asking a player, are you going to wear it or not? Are you going to wear it or not, right? And people criticized me for this last year, and I will agree to a certain extent that, like, people said, online, I mean, people are telling me, like, oh, you're over-covering this. You're not emphasizing enough the guys who did wear the jersey. And I will say that I tried to. I tried to interview a couple of, I don't want to give away the people, if they didn't want to do it for their own reasons, right? But I tried to spotlight and try to interview and try to make stories out of a couple people who did wear it or did support this cause, right? And try to spotlight them. But those sort of requests were declined. And so I didn't write those stories. And so it ended up on my site as, being purely pretty much about Reimer and his decision. And I think that on a lot of websites, a lot of the news, right, that was sort of the focus, right, was on the decision not to wear and not celebrating those who did wear, Yeah. And I can get that the group of all, just the players in general, they don't want to be, they are, most players, I think, are happy to wear for all these causes, right? Pride Night, Black History, et cetera, right? But they don't want to be in a position of being, like it's a media firestorm if they don't wear it or whatever. Yeah. They wear it because they basically, they may not agree with every aspect or everything about, about living an LGBTQ lifestyle or everything about Black history or Black Lives Matters or whatever, right? You may not agree with every part of that, but in general, though, they they have a general, maybe, I don't know, sympathy or agreement, and they're fine with it, right? But when it becomes something where it's a media firestorm, it's a big issue, right? Then they want to shy away from that, right? And I mean, it's normal because, look, in the end, like, I know people expect more of them, but they're hockey players. They're here to play hockey. That's literally, how they make their money. All this other stuff, can be I hate to use the word distraction, but it distracts them, from their goal of being the best hockey player, the best at their job that they can be. And so I have a general understanding of why the jersey thing, and even my part in it, right, or media's part in it, right, why, like, it did make a smidgen of sense to be like, okay,
but the
just
distinction
no more.
you're trying to make is between what's mandatory, like everybody's got to wear these things, and it becomes like a media firestorm.
Right. If you don't, right, and look, it's fair. Like, if you don't, if it's mandatory and you don't wear it, or if everyone's been wearing it for a decade, right, and suddenly this year, 12 people decided not to wear it. That's a story, by the way. I'm sorry. Some people, that's another part of it. It was definitely a story.
It is.
It was definitely a story. Like, I agree that media, we could have covered the positive side of it, the 95% or whatever players who did wear it, right? So I agree with that part of it. But it doesn't mean that 5% or whatever percent that didn't wear it, that's a huge story. That's a huge story. And so anyway, though, so I want to draw that distinction. So the big thing with this pride tape that is so, retrograde, so just idiotic, is that the pride tape is something that a player could have just, it's not a jersey. It's just something that a player can choose to put on, whether he chooses to not. And I'm pretty sure, some people will say, "Oh, it's going to be the same thing as last year." You're going to question players about why they didn't put on the tape. I don't really think it's going to be like that. It's not as, I don't know, bold a statement as everybody has been wearing the jersey for, a decade. The teams that had Pride Nights have had these. I know not every team has had it, but Pride Nights have been around. I think the jerseys have been around for maybe a decade or so, right? And there's never been a case that we've known before that of a player not wearing it, right? Of course, there are players that maybe wouldn't wear it but they weren't given like those teams just didn't have Pride warm-up jerseys. They may have had Pride jerseys for auction, but they didn't have Pride warm-up jerseys, right? That players wore during warm-ups, right? So it was never just out there who didn't want to put it on, and so everybody wore it for a decade. Suddenly people weren't wearing it, right? But the Pride tape though has always been a matter of, I don't think that every time a player has worn a Pride jersey that they have Pride tape with it, right? And so let's say the Sharks on their Pride night this year, right, which I think is in January, let's say like half the players, decide, let's say NHL adjusts its policy or whatever, or the players protest, which I hope they do, and they just put on the Pride tape and take on the fines or whatever, right? But anyway, though, like, let's say like 10 Sharks, put on the Pride tape and 8 of them don't. I'm not going to, chase 8 players down and be like, hey, how come you didn't wear the Pride tape? To me, that would be like, okay, like Duclair, right? I mentioned Duclair with his skates, right? Before Martin Luther King Day, right? And he had the Black Lives Matter and change hockey culture, all that stuff on his skates, right?
Sure.
I'm pretty sure, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that, when Duclair did that his 17 other teammates, no one put anything on their skates. Yeah. Was anybody chasing the other Florida players like, hey, how come you didn't wear Black Lives Matter skates? Does that mean you don't support Black Lives Matter? No.
No. Or, the default response could just be, like I've been doing the exact same thing in warm-ups for my entire career, and I don't want to change it. Hockey players are like superstitious.
There's a lot of ways that it wouldn't
doesn't become a huge thing. It's just like, oh yeah, I didn't want to do it.
I'm not going to say that like no reporter will ask some player, hey, how come you don't have the Bright tape on, But it would not be the degree of this. Again, you got to, again, the circumstances. These are different things. Like the Pride jersey was a big thing because for a decade, every player wore them. That as
It
far
was
as we know,
mandatory
no
kind
one.
of thing, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't know if it was mandatory. Oh yeah, I guess it's basically mandatory because it's just a general mandatory. Like you wear what your teammates wear at warmups.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. It was expected, I guess.
yeah, but that is said with again acknowledging that not every team did have pride warm up jerseys. That's a big distinction. I know famously, I think it's been noted that like Alexander Ovechkin, the Capitals, have never had a pride warm up night, and this is just presumption. Presumption is that Ovechkin wouldn't have worn it, maybe and so stuff like that where like it was skirted around, so we don't really know. But anyway, it was a big story because for a decade, every team that had a Pride warm-up jersey night, that every player that was in the game wore it. And then suddenly players weren't doing it, and then so that's why that became a story. But the Pride tape has never had that sort of.
Yeah, it just feels like
every player doing it.
extremely
Yeah.
targeted to be like, I don't want to, like the NHL basically saying, I don't want this kind of individualism. I don't want this kind of.
It just feels very
like
corporate.
diversity.
Like let's
corporate.
let's have as little controversy as possible. And anyway, I'm gonna finish up at least for myself. Like
Sure.
Duclair's thought about the NBA and NFL and the leagues not growing, right? Or I'm sorry, they're growing their leagues, right? And people are like, oh, the NFL has never had Pride warm-up jersey. That's not the fucking point. Like the point of what he's saying is that you don't close doors on people. Like,
Yeah.
and I get there's another like sort of aspect to it that you don't want to close the doors to people that for whatever reason hate Pride, right? Or because that is a big part of your fan base. I'm not denying that, but again, that's the distinction here. So the warm-up jerseys, I get the business sense of, even if I don't agree philosophically or personally, right? But I get the business sense of it. The Pride tape, though, like no one's gonna say anything again if like Nine Sharks decide they're gonna have the Pride tape, and Nine say, oh well, I don't really feel like it. It's not my thing. Or Black History night, if Duclair has something, but like I don't know, Fabian Zetterlund decides not to have any of this. I mean, Fabian Zetterlund's a racist, of course not,
Yeah, exactly.
And so like that's the point, that like who are you appeasing with this Pride tape thing? There is no, again, like this, there's no stand to take here. You just let the guys choose kind of what they want to support. They want to support on Military Appreciation Night. I don't know if it's like sort of maybe disrespectful, but like if a player were to have like military camouflage sort of like tape,
whatever,
right, and like a few players opted not to do it, no one would say anything about it. Just be like, okay, for like, we know Brent Burns was very, a pro-military, that was a big thing for him when he was with the Sharks, right? If a Brent Burns has it, but Erik Karlsson chooses not to, that's not, there's no one's really making a statement,
Sure.
Maybe Brent is just saying like, I care a little bit more about this, kind of picking and choosing your causes, kind of,
It's
so yeah.
I have a few things to say about it. They're all pretty much exactly what or I'm going to echo what you said. Basically, when you make it a mandate or when it's kind of mandatory, certain players like James Reimer or the Stahl brothers will feel rightly or wrongly, like it's going against whatever they believe in.
Sure.
You can make a lot about it. You can hate on them all they want, but it's what they're saying that they believe in and they don't want to do it. And the NHL is responding to that in some way, probably more so because of the business side of things, by saying, okay, we won't make this a thing anymore.
Yeah, we won't make you wear it.
This is different. This is like you're just basically squashing their individual choice because you want to, or because you feel like it's a better business decision.
It's the most careful thing to do.
It's the most careful thing. The most like the most non-problematic thing to do is to basically say that nobody has their own individual rights in a league that has been like notoriously like shit on for being like unable to promote its own stars, unable to promote its individual aspects of their players, who, and they're up against leagues like the NBA, MLS, where they're like getting more and more stars. Like you get Messi who comes to the MLS, you get LeBron James every night for 6 months on ESPN. In the NHL is like got very little to promote their individuality. They're just purposely saying, we don't want it. We want no more individuality. We want people to not have things to believe in. They only believe in the good of the game. They only believe in the NHL and its rigid structure. And I think that's really dumb. there was a there's been a bunch of articles out for the past like 10, 15 years about the growth of the NHL. And there's been some growth, obviously, like a little bit of growth in terms of the USA market, but not a lot. Comparatively between like MLS and NBA and F1 even is like coming around. The growth is like very, very little for 18 to 25-year-olds. It's like last between all of those leagues and obviously behind like MLB and NFL. So it's bad when you're that bad for the younger generation, and then you're purposely being like, we don't want these people to try and connect with that generation at all. That's just my opinion.
I want to go back to what Duclair said about the NBA and NFL. Like, I know it's not a one-for-one thing. Like, if you wear pride tape, that means people will watch. The NHL is gonna overtake Major League Baseball. No, it's not. It's not about that. But it's actually, if you look at it, if you are the fifth or sixth most popular team sport in America, don't close doors on people.
True.
Don't make people feel like the doors are closing. I mean, I know some people will be like, pride tape never stopped a gay person from liking hockey or disliking hockey. Of course, I get that, but like, this is such big news, such a bad look, and so I'm gonna give the NHL some credit. Like, other leagues didn't have pride warm-up jerseys, as many people point out. The NHL was a leader to some degree in that, but now they've like totally reversed. It's like they got criticized. Some players got criticized. The NHL got criticized for not making these players wear the pride jerseys, all this kind of stuff, right? That they've gone from being like slightly progressive to, we're gonna totally be shut-ins now. We're gonna totally like turtle now, and that's stupid. It's a bad look. It just makes no sense. Like this specific thing makes no sense, because just let the players decide that if they want to put on pride. Don't make it a thing. Now the NHL has made it a thing, and they're probably going to reverse it, or players will protest or something, right? But they look bad already. Even thinking that this was a sensible idea to try to enforce, to even put out a mandate on that. Like, just a terrible look.
It's awful, and it's a thing. Yeah. It's why are these like slogans of hockey is for everyone when they continually just try and prove that it's not, like over and over again. And the amount of scandals that continually happen with hockey is just never ending. It feels like, and I don't know.
Scandals are one thing, but like literally just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah,
but literally, like that's your own choice to decide to say like, hey, no more pride tape. Like, specify no more pride tape. No more. Of course they'll say, oh, it's all statements of all kinds. But why would you even do that? Who was bothered by pride? No, the ones. I don't think people were really. I mean, there'll be some people howling about it, but players had it for years. No one was really bothered by it.
Yeah. To be honest, like the few times I saw it, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I forget about it. And somebody who, actually is really involved in LGBT causes, they might look at that and go, wow, actually, that's really cool. And that's awesome.
That's the point. That's the point, that you open the door. That's the hockey is for everyone. Let's open the door. Even open the door for the racists and the haters. Let's be honest. That's all part of people who like the league, right? And anyway, it just makes no sense to this particular part of the decision. But anyway, let's move on.
We've been talking a lot about it. Yeah. I mean, we had a whole episode on like the Barracuda and fighting, so we almost had a whole episode here with this one. No, anyway, we'll see. I really do hope they like combat it, and it's like the fighting the evil empire of the NHL.
Yeah,
and it's just Scott Lawton put out a thing that he's gonna wear it. He doesn't.
I hope the players just put it on. Yeah, I mean, how much is the NHL going to fine? And also, players can just not. I don't know. Just don't pay it. See what the NHL does. I mean, come on. Yeah.
We'll see what the NHLPA puts out about it too. I don't think they've actually said anything yet.
Yeah, that's kind of
different.
Telling in its own way, I guess. But
maybe a bit.
Yeah.
All right, we are moving on to the last segment of the show, which is our bold predictions for the season. We've got a couple each, and we're gonna talk through our reasoning about them. But Sheng, do you want to start us off?
Yes. I'm going to say that the Sharks clear 70 points this year, which is I think a very, very bold prediction. The
good.
Sharks had 60 last year, and they lost Erik Karlsson. And this one comes more from Phil, I think. A little bit, it's the law of averages, right? That the Sharks, were close in a lot of games. The Sharks should have had a better record than they had last year, at least through the trade deadline. I mean, they were, I think, playing actually about 500 hockey. They just couldn't close leads. They lost, they lost games in overtime, right?
Sure.
So things, I think they had like 16 overtime losses or something, which was, I think,
Yep.
franchise record. So things like that, I don't think will repeat. They'll do a better job of holding leads. They won't have a lot of leads. That's why I predict. But I think that they're going to do enough to clear 70 points, be slightly better in terms of actual on the ice improvement. Besides law of averages, I do generally like their forward group, even though there's maybe too many reclamation, too many like what ifs. But I think overall, though, it should be a stronger group, and I expect I expect some better goaltending to emerge, even though there isn't a necessarily a great reason to believe on that. I'm not going to use Kahkonen's preseason, just preseason. I'm not going to use their success, Kahkonen and Blackwood's from a couple years ago. Just going to say that, yeah, at some point, this is maybe a little law of averages. At some point, the Sharks just need to get better goaltending at some point.
Sure. I'm going to be the pessimist in the room. The Sharks finish, and this is my prediction, with the worst record in the NHL.
That's not a bold prediction, but
It's not bold.
yeah, I shouldn't have let that one pass through.
Opposite.
That's
Yeah,
definitely
true.
not bold at all.
It is the well. It actually, to be fair,
Yes.
there are some bad teams in the NHL left that could challenge the Sharks for this kind of record.
Right,
Like,
but still, the Sharks are like they're the anti Stanley Cup favorite. They're like Carolina.
Basically.
Who's going to win Stanley Cup? Carolina, Vegas. Colorado. Right, all down the line.
we
right.
had to have
The
something
Sharks
to
are,
counteract your optimism,
Sure.
which is my optimism of the worst
My
record in the
optimism, yeah, in like major quotes,
NHL.
yeah.
They had last year the Sharks had 22 wins, which was the worst, the least amount of wins in the NHL. I mean, unfortunately, they finished fourth, even though they had 22 wins, because they had 16 overtime losses, which was the second most overtime losses of any team, behind Calgary with 17.
Yeah.
So you're right. There will be some kind of law of averages, I think, in terms of some of those games are going to go the other way, probably, and maybe they get some better goaltending, which I think they will this year. But I don't think that they make up for the lack of actual first line talent. They have
Okay.
a lot of depth. They have a lot
Yeah.
of good guys in the second and third line, or around those archetypes, right? Like Hoffman
Sure.
and Duclair and Barabanov. They don't have any really first. I mean, they have Hurdle and they have Couture, who are first liners. Maybe Hurdle you can swing on like a Boston or something where they have really good wingers or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't have really first liner star talent at all. They've lost Meyer, they've lost Karlsson,
Sure.
both of which were able to put up star seasons, point per game seasons, star defenseman seasons. I think that alone is going to make them push down almost every game where their first line of another team can dominate our first line, no matter what. So I just see them losing a lot of games overall. And then I think by the trade deadline, but actually probably by about January, I think this is when we're going to start seeing the Sharks kind of move a different direction, try and
Sure.
get younger guys to play and start selling off pieces. It's going to be another tank year, in my opinion. And, this isn't a bold prediction. This is just a prediction that they get the worst overall points
Yeah.
in the NHL.
And, I'll say, too, that, like, my prediction is contingent on them probably, because after the deadline, they're, like they did last year, like they did in the last couple of years, they're probably going to really kind of fall off the face of the earth after the,
Yeah, the time's
after the
pretty
deadline. And so they'll probably need to be, like, at a 75, maybe even 80-point pace
Sure.
before the deadline. And that's a very, very bold, like, sort of pace for them to meet.
Yeah.
So it's 80 points is basically 500 teams. So, but anyway, though, unless you have something else to continue, I'm
Not
going to
really
go
my
on with the next
non-bold
one.
prediction.
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
go.
Okay, so my prediction is Filip Zadina will score 20-plus goals this year, which I think will be great at 1.1 million. And if he does do that, he produces in that area, then we're talking about somebody that maybe he's just 23, that maybe you think about long-term with the team. And part of the reason why I'm going with this one is, and he didn't score a goal in the preseason, so it's not based on that, obviously. But I really like the other parts of his game. I've talked about this last podcast that I've been surprised by just how hard he competes, just the little things, right? The stuff that keeps you in lineups, right? And he does a lot of those things, which you don't expect out of a guy that sixth overall pick, drafted to score, hasn't scored, right? You think it's just
Yep.
because the stereotype of guys like that is bad defense, bad effort. That's not the case with Zadina. David Quinn, like I mentioned, has praised both Zadina's work ethic, his competitiveness, has called him an honest player, right? I think the main thing that is blocking Zadina from that potential is Zadina himself. He's talked about confidence being an issue. He's hard on himself. So I think the key is that if he can get to the point where he's not so hard on himself, if he's not scoring, if he goes like 7, 8 games without a goal, like if he's doing the other things right, and I think it'll help that there's a deeper forward group, so maybe hopefully other guys are scoring too, so it's not as noticeable if Zadina goes into a slump. But if he does the other things well, I think he'll be fine. And that's we talk about this when we talk a lot about the difference between a William Eklund and Thomas Bortolo, at least last year, right? That Eklund has a B game. He has a clear B game that he can rely on if he's not scoring. And Eklund doesn't seem to have this kind of confidence problem. So if he's not scoring, he's just going to kind of do the same thing, and then the points will come, right?
Sure.
With Bortolo, we question. We saw a little more of it during preseason, but the B game, if he's not scoring, what is he doing to help you, right? Zadina is doing things that can help a team if he's not scoring. He just needs to stick to it and not be discouraged if he's not scoring, kind of. And if you have a mental or sort of a lack of confidence, right, and then that sort of bleeds into other areas, right? Don't let it bleed into other areas if you're not scoring. So if he's able to do that, then I think I could see him being sort of a potential core piece for the Sharks, the next as they try to get out of the rebuild.
Yeah, and they're giving him, first line minutes with the best center on the Sharks, probably.
He's playing power play too. And Hurdle, as we saw with, we talked about Jacob Peterson and Barabanov a couple of years ago. Hurdle, whatever you want to say about them, Hurdle makes, is a good enough player that he makes it easier for his line mates.
Sure.
And so he's the kind of the right guy, sort of, to put with a guy like Zadina, I think.
Yeah, and I was reading some things online about or like Detroit fans were mentioning that he didn't have that kind of like compete or physicality to his game when he was in Detroit. So I wonder, I didn't really watch him all that much in Detroit. So I wonder
I
how
didn't
much
either,
really,
to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if
sometimes
like
it's
a
fan
new element
perception,
or-
though. Yeah, so
or fan
I'll
perception.
check on it
That's
because
valid.
because according to the fans, like David Quinn screwed over Alexis Lafreniere and Kaapo Kahkonen.
Internet
And
talk.
it actually turns out that Lafreniere and Kahkonen just aren't that good.
They might not be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lafreniere has had a rough go of it. Anyway, okay, so your predictions about goal scoring and Zadina getting 20, which would be his highest goal scoring total.
Career high 10.
Yeah, so my prediction is that Anthony Duclair, is going to be the Sharks' goal-scoring leader this year, at least until the trade deadline. If he gets traded, I'm not counting it. So, like, if he gets to like 20 goals or 25,
Sure.
and then gets like one goal with whoever he gets traded to, I'm not counting it. But
Okay.
he's going to be the Sharks' goal-scoring leader. Last year, the goal-scoring leaders were Timo Meier with 31 before he was traded at his 57th game. Erik Karlsson with 25 in 82 games, as well as Logan Couture with 27 in his 82 games. So those top three, you have Couture, who's injured until we don't know when. Karlsson's gone and Meier's gone. Below that, you've got Hurdle at 22 and Barabanov and LeBanc both had 15 last year. So I just think that Duclair has the ability to score 30 goals. He did so a year ago, or 2 years ago.
Yeah,
with
31,
Florida. 31 goals. I think they're going to give him more and more ice time as the season goes on. I think he's going to be the Sharks' goal-scoring leader at least until the trade deadline. Is my prediction.
Okay. I'm gonna call Hurdle for this one. I'm expecting a bit of a bounce back year for Tommy. I think also like Zadina, like Hurdle's in his own way a little bit mentally. And I think Hurdle's problem is a little different. It's not a confidence thing, but it's taking so much on his shoulders. Big contract. Team is losing. He's a star. He's got to. I think he's gonna do a little. So far, he's sort of shown a sort of a. I think he's gonna lighten up a bit. Not to say that he's gonna take losing easily, but just not be not put as much pressure on himself. I think he's gonna be able to do that, and so I think he's gonna clear. If he's healthy, I would expect him to clear 70 points. Kind of be that 30 goal guy he has been too, right, in his best seasons, right. So I kind of expect that kind of season from him. Sort of a season that will make his contract, even though the Sharks won't win a lot of games, people will understand. Last year they weren't happy with it, but this year they'll understand why Hurdle was paid $8 million a year. So that's my call for goal scorer.
I like Hurdle a lot. I worry that without some of his usual line mates around him, and without Carlson and Meyer, that he might regress a bit. That's my own.
Well, but you can argue though there's more opportunity. He's going to shoot more. On the power play last year with Meyer, right? Meyer was the clear shooter, go to option, right? Maybe Hurdle will shoot more. Hurdle will take it upon himself more. If his line mates are, Zadina and Hoffman. Of course Hoffman is historically a great shooter too. But I can see Hurdle being more assertive, and so that that will add to his production. Also, too, add the note too that power play actually was an area that Erik Karlsson didn't really affect that positively in his time with the Sharks, even last year. I think the Sharks finished 25th on the power play last year. And so, so I don't think that's so much the loss of Karlsson will be felt as much on the power play, at least. Obviously, on 5-on-5, it will be huge, but power play, maybe not.
Yeah, we'll see. And it would be a good thing for the Sharks' future if Hurdle could turn around and be he's still a mainstay top 6 center kind of thing, because that would be huge for the time being. All right, what's your next one, Sheng, after our goal scoring leaders?
Yeah, let's see. Sorry, let me pull up my list.
You got it.
There you go. Okay. So this one is might worry some people, and this is I'm gonna say this out front that this is pure guess. This isn't educated guess. This is just a pure guess, right? We talked about Couture's health. Obviously, went backward a little bit, right? With him not skating the last couple of days after skating for 2 days, Friday and Monday. So I'm going to put out there that want to be very clear about this, that this is just a guess. This is not this is not based on anything, anything that I know under the table through sources, whatever, right? But my guess is that Couture doesn't play until December. And part of it is obviously, he's had a setback. My guess, everybody's guess is that something like a groin injury or something like that gets aggravated if you push it too much, and that you want to be very careful with. You don't want to push too much. You want to give it a shot like they did with the last when Couture did skate, but you don't want to push it too much. And so I think that obviously he's not trying to get ready for the playoffs. There isn't a huge reason for him to rush himself, even with Erik Karlsson in 2018-19. That's a team that there was an argument that Karlsson got rushed there too, or he rushed himself. He pushed himself too much, but it was a good team. He wants you want to be out there when the team is doing well. You want to be a part of that, and that sort of thing, right? With in this case though, with Couture though, obviously it probably helps the draft position the longer he sits out. I don't think the Sharks will make him sit out for that reason, but there just isn't as many reasons for him to kind of push himself. You want him to be healthy when he starts to play this season, 100% healthy. And so that's my bold prediction. We'll see. Maybe he's gonna play in 2 weeks from now, and
or
I'll
on
look
Thursday.
real stupid. No,
in
no, no,
tomorrow.
no, no, no. He's been ruled out, so he's
I'm
not playing.
joking.
Yeah, and if he's not skating this week. He's not.
I
He's
know.
not playing. I mean, the best case is maybe like 2 weeks from now. That's the very best case, I think, or something like
It
that.
is a
Yeah.
bad omen when they say setback or when
Oh,
they
sure,
keep
sure, sure.
posting like timelines that go further and further back. That it
Yeah.
tells me they don't really have a handle on it
Yeah.
at all.
Yep.
So, and if it is something nagging that is hard to really gauge when you're going to be 100%, and they don't want to rush him. There's no real reason to it. Couture's been a lifelong Shark, and this season is likely not going to be the one that they win the Stanley Cup in. So, it's
For
yeah,
real?
for real. That's my bold prediction is that this is the year the Sharks do not win the Stanley. Anyway, all right. So my prediction has nothing to do with injuries. It just has to do with the goaltending. So I predict that Kaapo Kahkonen posts above a .905 is the cutoff
Okay.
I'm giving it. Last year, Kaapo Kahkonen had a .883, which was among one of the worst for goaltenders that have more than like 25 starts. He had 37 games that he played in last year. Very, very poor. It's interesting because the year before, when he was traded for, he only got into like 11 games, but he had a .916 at the end of that year. That was also famously the year that James Reimer put up a .911. So even in his short 11-game stint, he even had above Reimer. Now, you could argue that this was a different Shark system, like under Bob Bugner.
Yeah, it was more defensive.
More defensive, easier for goaltenders to put up good points or good numbers. And that's actually, you mentioned it before, one of the few seasons in the past like 5 years for the Sharks that a Shark goaltender has put up a positive goal saves above expected percentage. Him in 2021, 2022, that's James Reimer. And then 2019, 2020, when Aaron Dell was playing, he had like a .907, which was the only 2 seasons by a Sharks goaltender with a positive rating, basically. So I think that this will be the third one. And I think
Okay.
Kaapo has had hopefully some adjustment to his play over the summer that he's mentioned. I don't know if it's going to make the Sharks any more of a competitive team because they are still going to be splitting starts, I think, between him and Blackwood pretty much the whole year, I imagine. But I think in the games that Kaapo is going to play, he's going to play very well.
What do you
That's
think
kinda my
Blackwood's save percentage will be?
Oh, 0.891.
Okay, so you're liking you're buying Kahkonen stock this
I've
year,
got-
but
yeah.
not Blackwood. Okay.
Blackwood, it's been this way for a few years, and like
2 years.
2 years, few years,
Yeah.
I guess, couple somewhere around that. That he just hasn't really put up a like really starting NHL goaltender caliber year at all, and it's tough because he's not old. He's like 27, 28.
He's not
But
to
when
be
goal-
probably, if you're to ask, not everybody, but I think
Hmm.
in general, he's regarded as the more talented
Sure.
of the two. But of course, consistency is the name of the game. So it's not
Yeah.
about talent level.
Yeah, I'm not as sold on him, but based
Okay.
on his New Jersey play, as I
Yeah.
Kaapo.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a strong opinion on this. I just would be so happy if the Sharks start getting good goaltending, so I don't need to continue on with the tiresome, is it the defense, is it the goaltending debate. Both suck.
Yeah, and well, the year that we had good goaltending, we ended up with like the 11th overall draft pick. So it wasn't. I mean, we moved out of like the absolute cellar.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like we got that much closer. It was just like we moved pretty, 11th overall, basically. All right, what do we got next?
Okay, this one maybe is not so bold a prediction, but I'm really liking Granlund coming into this season. I've liked what I've seen. I've liked what I've heard. So I'm going Granlund with over 50 points, and I'll talk about it. Your bold predictions coming up, but okay. So anyway, so Granlund, I think will have a bounce back season. I think he's going to be the guy that he was with Nashville a couple years ago. He led all Nashville forwards in playing time 2 years ago on a playoff Nashville team too. So a pretty good team with pretty good forwards like Matt Duchene, who scored 43 goals that year. Philip Forsberg, right? So it was a pretty strong group of Nashville forwards. But Granlund was the kind of the do everything, every situation, top power play unit. He was like maybe second choice on a penalty kill, but a regular penalty killer, right? And so if you're gonna miss a guy, if a guy like Couture is gonna sit out whatever length of time, Logan's gonna sit out. Granlund is really like as ready-made kind of a substitute kind of, that, or I wouldn't say he's the most ready-made in the league, of course not, but like he is a ready-made, perfect almost substitute for Couture. Not the exact same kind of player, but I think that they can contribute in about the same kind of ways. Again, on both sides of the ice and in all special teams.
I really liked what I saw from Granlund in the preseason, and I agree. I think he's got some untapped potential there that Pittsburgh obviously couldn't support his contract after they traded for him, and he wasn't playing well there, so they didn't want to keep the risk of having him be on a playoff hopeful team. But it doesn't mean that he's worthless. He still was pretty good in Nashville before he was traded, and also was very good 2 years ago. So with some more ice time, with some probably top power play minutes, I think you're right. I think he could definitely top out 50 points or more.
Yeah.
My prediction, this is probably one of the
This is a bold one. I like this one, yeah.
I think that Barabanov is going to be our points leader, at least until the trade deadline. I keep saying this because
he has an expiring contract, yeah.
And Duclair are both like probable trade targets if the Sharks are not in the playoff hunt, at least for teams that want some depth down the wings. But Barabanov, he's been improving his point totals every year. So he had 47 last year.
Yeah, it was pretty good. He was on pace for 50, but he just was hurt. If he had been healthy, I don't know.
The 4 players above him are Erik Karlsson, Couture, Hertl, and Meier. And Meier's gone, Karlsson's gone, Couture is hurt. I don't know how long for, and then Hertl. So it's really, I think, between like Duclair, Granlund, Barabanov, and Hertl are going to be your probable points leaders. I'm picking Barabanov. I think he's going to run with it. I think he's going to be healthy, and I also think he's going to be a good addition for a playoff team.
Okay.
I'm picking with it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, I talked about, I think it's going to be a bounce back season for Hertl, so I expect him to lead the Sharks in goals, in assists, and in points, and just be that guy.
Yeah, and that would be awesome. I do love Thomas Hertl, so hopefully he is healthy and he is ready to be that guy for the Sharks. I'm going with Barabanov, and then he has like a first-round pick, draft value. No, I'm kidding. No. He's probably going to be. I'm going to say like second and like an AHL'er is what he's going to get.
If you get a second, I think you're
feeling
thrilled
good
with that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Cool. All right, what do we got next?
Okay, so this one is pretty bold, I think, actually. Even though I like the player a lot, it's a Henry Thrun one. We talked about Henry Thrun earlier. So I'm gonna predict, and again, this is just a feel thing, that Thrun doesn't play a regular season game with the Barracuda this season, meaning that he's so good with the Sharks that they're gonna keep him up. And a couple of things that do support it, even though we predicted that Thrun would get sent down because of the numbers game, right? But this was before the regular season started, so I'm predicting that Thrun will be good enough once he hits the regular season that the team just can't send him down, kind of. And so a part of what I would add to it is that we know that David Quinn loves Henry Thrun, has been highly complimentary of him at any, and real compliment, again, not coaches speak. And Henry also is, he seems to have the right mindset, he always seems composed. He's been a leader everywhere that he's played, captain of Harvard last year, right? And he also has made clear improvements to his game from last year, where he already was pretty good, though granted, end of the season hockey, depleted Sharks team, so it wasn't that as hard for him to make an impression. But I think that Henry is going to hit the ground running here. And, there is a reason why, in all my summer roster predictions before they added Emberson, and I think maybe even before they added Root, I'm not sure. But anyway, I had Thrun making the team. And because I like, I like his game that much. And I like, too, his progress, too. And that's what's important. The Henry Thrun from last year, you can push him out with a Jan Ruda. You can push him out with maybe even a Radim Shimmick, all those kind of guys, right? But I think that Henry's going to show once the regular season starts that he really deserves to be here. And so I do have the caveat of regular season because once the Sharks, miss the playoffs like we predict, hopefully the Barracuda are in the playoffs, and so they can send Henry down for that. But at least. I believe though that Henry will be good enough to essentially to stay with the Sharks all year.
So who do you think? You think they end up just kind of like waiving or people are injured kind of thing to?
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to say. Obviously, we predicted I predicted previously that Schmick and McDonald would hit waivers eventually this year. Who loses? It's hard to say. There could be injuries, right? I'm gonna assume that there's gonna be some injuries along the way, like long-term ones that will help Henry's case to stay. The only two guys that I can kind of see the writing on the wall for in terms of their contracts or being waived are the two names that I mentioned. The other guys, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, yeah.
Speaking of rookies, this isn't really a bold prediction until you
not very bold at all. Very
it.
Disappointing, yeah.
Well, no. You analyze it a little bit further. Eklund is going to put up over 40 points this year, and the people are going to go, "Ooh, 40 points."
Very unbold, yeah.
There are two Sharks players in the last 23 years who have put up more than 40 points in their draft plus 3 year. Two. So do you know who those are?
Who are they?
Hurdle and Milan Mihalik. So Couture and Meyer both were close. I think they were in the 30s in their draft plus 3 year. So even though it doesn't seem that bold.
So basically they're 20-year-old seasons.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So Mihalik had a fantastic. I think he had like 60 points in his draft plus 3 year.
Right.
66. And then Thomas Hurdle had that 46 points in his draft plus 3 year. So
right.
It's bold in that it hasn't happened a lot for the Sharks, and also it's just not very common for younger players like this to reach that point. But I think
Marlo didn't do it.
Well, I said last 20 years.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
He's way before that.
Sure.
Yeah, because he came in, and I'm pretty sure he had like 40 points in his first year, I think.
No, he was like in the 20s, but he was
maybe
a mature kind of, so. Okay.
But other than that, so I'm going to say that Eklund puts up 40 points. I think he's going to get a lot of power play time, a lot of ice time. I like
think
the way his game is progressing, and they seem to have found a lineup spot for him. And obviously, this goes without saying, I don't think he's going to go back to the Barracuda. I think this is going to be his spot, unless it's like tune-up games or whatever.
Actually, I agree on both points. I think that Eklund will clear 40 points, and also too that I think he's seen the last of the Barracuda unless it's the playoffs or some kind of rehab game or whatever. Sure. All summer I predicted Eklund on the roster, just for this reason because like I mentioned that there is a clear B game. There is more consistency. Not to say that he's a veteran's consistency. He's not Couture yet, but there's a lot more than you would expect for a 20-year-old that would keep him in the lineup and give him chances to let the skill shine.
Yeah, I love Eklund. It's gonna be a great season for him. I hopefully doesn't get too beat down about if there's a bunch of losses. I imagine he won't, but
that's a question with the entire team. So yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just sometimes you worry about that when you're bringing up.
What about me,
players.
Keegan? I get beat down with the losses too.
You have to do this every night.
Concern. Yeah.
You have to ask the questions.
Exactly.
Every night about the losses.
So. I don't get days off. I don't get injured, so I can sit out for 2 months.
But are you going to put up 40 points? Is the thing.
I'll put out not 40 points, 40 but 40 posts. 40 posts. In a month, so or 2 weeks.
You need a break. You need injury reserve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you put out a call for Sharks writers.
Yes.
I saw.
Yes, and that's still going. Just send any. It's on the website, so just look for the requirements. I'm not going to explain everything that I put in the story because that's part of. part of the test, reading comprehension, and not making your busy editor-in-chief explain everything to you. So it's all there on the website. I'm, in terms of just when I'm looking to hire, it's kind of a floating thing because I'm pretty busy with the start of the season. But hopefully by say the beginning of November, I'm kind of set with a new group of writers. And so thank you for letting me mention it. And the email to reach is also on that story. So test number 1, find that email. It's not that hard. So
Yeah, and you have to listen to an hour and 8 minutes into the podcast. Anyway,
hopefully the prospective writers are smart enough to just have already gone to an article and not waited an hour and 8 for an answer that is already right in their face. So.
Yeah, probably so. All right, we got our last predictions. These are not too bold, but they're interesting, I think, and then we should get out of here.
And they're also not like kind of hard things that you can kind of hold us to. I mean, most of these predictions are, are numbers or rankings things. So you can, laugh at us when, Zadina is a 10-goal scorer again, or laugh at me when the Sharks are the worst team in the league and, going to have 55 points.
They waived Kaapo Kahkonen because
right, exactly, right, yeah. So all these have kind of hard kind of numbers that hard targets. To quote that excellent Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. So, but anyway, though, so these are bonus predictions, right? Bonus bold predictions. They don't have any numbers around them, but mine is that Mario Ferraro will kind of repair his rep this year. I think that Mario's going to not worry so much about, trying to be like a two-way, try to be a 30-point power play guy. They tried him there, right, in past years, right? I think they thought maybe he can do that or he could get to that point. And I think he's just going to focus on playing defense, and he's going to do a better job. But we know that Mario plays this frenetic, does too much kind of style, which is a bad fit for a bad team, because when your team is bad, then you're going to take it upon yourself to try to do too much, which is what he has done, I think, the last couple of years. I think he's gonna kind of pull the reins back enough. So I think that, and again, I'm not saying we're going to see this in the stats. He's not going to score a lot of points. I'm not saying that his J Fresh card is going to look a lot better. But I think in general, though, there's going to be a sense that his game has matured this year, and that it's progressing once again. Whereas you can argue that maybe it's plateaued or gone backward the last couple of years.
I'd be interested to see who's his partner that they stick with.
Who's we'll see.
Be the guy that kind of by the middle of December, who's he really sticking with? Is it going to be Ruta, or is it going to be Benning kind of thing?
Right now it's Burrows. They're going to try him out with Burrows, I think, tomorrow. So, or it could even be Emberson, right? So that's one thing the Sharks have done a nice job of, is having a set of right-handers there that that you feel okay with, at least our NHL caliber, probably at least. And so there could be that mix, because Merrill has played a lot on his offside too, which I think has been a challenge for him too. So I think that's going to help him too, just to have that consistency of knowing that chances are he's going to have a experienced, not in the case of Emberson, but somebody who is used to playing the right side at least on a nightly basis.
Yeah, and not so chaotic as Burns or Carlson either to really pair with.
Sure,
so
yeah.
We'll see. He could really steady out if he has a really steady defensive partner with him. Not that Benning or Burrows or Ruda are all world beaters defensively, but maybe a little less chaotic than Burns and Carlson. Anyway, my prediction is about Emberson. I think Emberson by the end of the year is going to cement himself into the lineup. I think he's going to
that's a bold
get himself
I like that.
Above probably, I don't know who it's going to be, but probably somebody like Burrows, I think, in terms of getting into that sixth D kind of spot. Maybe you get stepped into the top four occasionally kind of thing. I really like him. I mean, I haven't seen too much of him, and obviously this could change if I keep watching him and I see lots that stick out that are bad, and then this bold prediction is nothing. But I think it's Also very telling, and this is something that I've noticed from my career and the staff, is like when they target a guy, they really they have a reason for it, and they really like him, and they give him a chance to succeed.
Yeah.
And they don't just kind of like find it for whatever or for kicks and then just go, maybe it'll work. Like they didn't claim Ty Smith, they didn't claim like Lassie Thompson. They like found a dude that they were like, there's something maybe there about him.
Right, and they found a dude that it felt like they had a lot of already, right? Which is why everyone thought that. I thought that maybe Ty Smith, right? And even
Me too.
I don't know Lassie's game. Is Lassie Thompson more of an offensive guy too?
Not really.
Oh, okay. But still, though, like they picked like kind of a defensive.
But he was right-handed. Lassie is right-handed.
Oh, that's true. Okay, and then so is Emberson. But still, like that, they had a lot of So it doesn't really occur to you that even if they kind of like him, that like, do they need another like at best Jan Ruda, right? If Ty hits, but they liked him, right? And so that is a good point that like. They certainly didn't have to claim him, and there's certainly, bigger names, right, that they could have claimed, former first round picks that they could have claimed, and instead they went with Emberson.
Yeah, so I think by the end of the year, especially if they do move some people out, that he's
So how does this clear out then to you then the roster? Like, do you like my Thrun prediction, or do you think he gets sent down just because of the numbers?
I really want him to stay up. I don't know. I honestly think that by the end of the year, there's going to be somebody who's like sitting regularly.
Okay.
And it could be Emberson, but it could also be somebody like Burrows.
But
probably not Ruta because he's older.
Yeah.
Not.
I'm asking you though because because if you have Emberson as like kind of a nightly guy, a guy who doesn't get sat, right? And let's say Thrun. Okay, that's what I'm wondering. I think
Thrun might go down, and then it's either Thrun goes down or Burrows is kind of. Not, I mean, he's 1 year or he's 3 years, $1 million. He's going to be here for a while, but I don't think they're kind of thinking he's going to be in this 6-7 role. I think so.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, they're giving Mario Ferraro though, but we'll see though. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe Thrun goes down just based on the numbers aspect.
Okay.
That's kind of what it is. And maybe they trade somebody too is kind of
a thing. Sure.
If they
they waive a couple guys, they trade somebody, right? Or guys get hurt.
The only one that really has trade value is I guess Ferraro, but I don't know about that.
No, Ruda has some. He's pricey though. 2 years, yeah. As 1 year, he would have value. Actually, I don't think they'll trade him, but Benning and Burrows have value just because even though they're on long contracts, they're so low that you can bury them in its entirety. And Benning is a guy that for sure, like if they just auction him off to the highest bidder. I don't think they would get a lot, but they would get something back for him, like a 4th round, 3rd round pick, just because, he is, he may not be the top 4 defenseman that the Sharks use him as because they don't really have a choice. But Matt Binning's, I think, a very good defenseman and, very good on a playoff team. He's a good bottom pairing defenseman, not just a guy you put in there because of cap or whatever, right? Like, just you squeeze a guy in there.
He can, he's defensively responsible.
And he competes hard. He's he's a leader. Like, people laugh at him being on the power play, but the fact that he's able to kind of moonlight as that and like, he put up some points last year, right? Like, the fact that he's able to even do a facsimile of that, right? Like, that's a guy that has a little more to his game than just like defense. Look at actually his career. He played the power play with McDavid for a couple of years there. He actually was kind of a regular, not to say that was the best Oilers power play. I don't think those Oilers teams made the playoffs, but like, there is a little more there than just a pure he's not an exceptional offensive player. It may not even be above average, but he's not. But like,
I think he gets a bad rap because people expected more from him.
No, it's not even that they expect more. It's just that he's put in places, right? They put him on the power play, and that kind of makes him look bad because ideally he's not your PP2 quarterback, right? But can he kind of do it and like look better than Vlasic, Ferraro, and all those other guys? He did last year. He looked better, I would say, than those guys at least would have been in those positions at least last year, right? And so if he's kind of like a above average defensively and like say slightly below average offensively compared to say a Ferraro who is, like clearly below average offensively, at least at this point, right? That's that's not bad. That's a player that teams can use. So anyway, in terms of trade value, going back to that,
Benning, Ruta.
Yeah, I think Benning has value. I think Benning actually probably has arguably the highest value. Maybe Ferraro, just because Ferraro is younger and has that whole leadership and that whole, like great lock. Not that Benning isn't those things, but like, Ferraro is like huge locker room guy. But I actually would say that there's a chance. I know that there was talk last year that teams made a team made a pretty good offer for Ferraro, but I would say that Benning might actually, if you were to put all of them available for trade right now, and let's not count Thrun because Thrun is unproved. Like Thrun will probably get the most because Thrun he's the prospect of the bunch, right? But of the veteran guys, that I actually would argue that Benning might get the best sort of return. I mean, wouldn't be like a huge return, but the best of this bunch. Actually, I might say that. Yeah, because again, Ruda might be liked better around the league, but his contract, 2 years at a higher ticket is contracts play a part of it. But yeah, anyway.
So I think ultimately something happens, and then Emberson kind of gets into the lineup that way. Is kind of my prediction. By the end of the year, he's more of like a consistent lineup guy rather than being what we think is going to be scratched for the first game.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. It is
okay.
This is the day before the Sharks opening night.
Yep.
May come out tonight. Might come out tomorrow. We'll see, but. Hope you guys have a good week, and we will report back next week with some Sharks game results as well. Real excited. Take care, guys. Bye.